This reverse lecture should answer the most important question about the respiratory system, in my opinion. Why is oxygen so important to our survival? In the image here, we can see that, we inhale oxygen. We're reminded of that. And the oxygen goes into our blood and is deposited into our muscle cells and every other cell in our body. At the same time, these cells are going to deposit carbon dioxide into our bloodstream. And then once this carbon dioxide rich blood travels to the lungs, then we exhale it. But why? This brings us to the process of cellular respiration. Cellular respiration should not be confused with respiration that occurs at the lungs, the inhaling and the exhaling. In cellular respiration, we're talking about at the cellular level. There are a set of chemical reactions that we call cellular respiration. And we can sort of see the formula below, sort of a rough estimation of it. We see that sugar and oxygen are our substrates that get processed. And the products are carbon dioxide and water. And most importantly, what we get is usable energy for our cells. We'll discuss in more detail in the next slides. This is an overview of cellular respiration. Basically, we eat the food and we need to extract the energy from that food. And that is what cellular respiration accomplishes. So we inhale oxygen, we digest food, and then we release carbon dioxide when we breathe out. We also release water as waste. And that water might be exhaled as water vapor. Maybe some of the water is released as sweat. But the important thing is that in this process, we're getting the energy from our food. We can define cellular respiration as follows. This is the process in which sugars, like glucose, are converted into usable energy. That usable energy is actually ATP. It's another chemical, but we won't get too much into that. And now we can see a better version of that equation below. Glucose, right here, this is the formula, and you can see that it is made of 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens, and 6 oxygens. The bonds that keep the carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms in glucose connected are really high in energy. So we break those bonds in cellular respiration, and we trap that released energy into ATP. So to recap, for every sugar molecule, or glucose molecule, we need 6 oxygen molecules that we inhale, and then the enzymes begin to break the bonds in these substrates, and they make, as waste, 6 carbon dioxide molecules, 6 water molecules. But the grand prize, of course, is the energy that is released from the food and trapped as ATP in this reaction. The natural question, of course, is where does the glucose come from? The easiest answer, of course, is that it's already in our food. So we get the glucose when we eat food. But where did the glucose originate? So if you think about a food chain, like here, let's start at the lion. The lion, where does it get its glucose from? Well, from eating the deer. And where does the deer get its glucose from? Well, it gets it from the grass that it eats. All right. And also note that it's not just glucose, but proteins and other stuff in the diet that they get from other organisms. But let's go back to these plants. And the plants, well, where do they get their glucose from? Well, they get it they make it. They make it in the process of photosynthesis. So in photosynthesis, as we know, plants take in carbon dioxide through the pores in their leaves and water through their roots. The carbon dioxide and the water are basically the raw materials to build glucose. And recall that glucose is broken down into carbon dioxide and water as waste products in cellular respiration. So naturally, it makes sense that plants would need carbon dioxide and water to create glucose. So we can see that equation here that the plants are taking in carbon dioxide and water, and then they produce sugar, and they of course release oxygen as waste. But plants absorb the sunlight to provide the energy that to create the bonds that combine the carbon dioxide and the water molecules into the sugar or the glucose. And as I noted before, notice that, of course, a waste product of photosynthesis is oxygen. And then take a look, at these equations again. And what do you notice about the equation of photosynthesis and the equation of respiration, cellular respiration? Yeah, you probably noticed that they're opposites, right? So in photosynthesis, sugar is created, right? But in cellular respiration, sugar is broken down. One requires water and carbon dioxide and releases oxygen as waste, while the other requires oxygen and releases water and carbon dioxide as waste. Sunlight energy, of course, is required for photosynthesis, but energy is released in cellular respiration. I actually think it's quite beautiful. So if you think about it, these opposite reactions of cellular respiration and photosynthesis are basically two sides of the same coin. Creating sugar versus breaking down sugar. They form a nice cycle as depicted in this diagram. So of course, plants take in carbon dioxide and they create their sugars, right? They create their sugars for themselves. I just want to make sure that that's important, that they are going to get the energy from the sugar that they created, right? But it so happens, of course, that we eat, in the food chain, other organisms eat them. But let's go back here. So the plant takes in their carbon dioxide, and they use the carbon of the carbon dioxide to create their sugar. And then, of course, they release oxygen as waste. But then, of course, we inhale that oxygen, and we need the oxygen to break down the sugars in our food, and then we release carbon dioxide as waste. So wonderful, beautiful cycle. So hopefully now you are able to answer the question, why do we inhale oxygen? Well, we need oxygen for the process of cellular respiration, which allows us to extract the energy from our food. Without oxygen, we die because our cells starve. So that's cellular respiration in a nutshell. Thank you.